Interview, and none of you will hear it. Anyway, so welcome. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. We have liftoff. Welcome. It's great to have you here, Stan. It's good to meet you. And I would say welcome to Washington, but you've been here for a while.
Almost 2 years now.
2
yeah.
years
Shame
now.
on you for waiting this long.
Well, I was just waiting for the stadium.
Okay.
In fact, even though you all have been here for a few years, in some way does this feel like the beginning? Starting here, starting now?
Well, it's the beginning of a very different era, but it's what we've been looking toward from the day we got the team. We knew that, look, this is going to become a marquee franchise just by virtue of the recent revival of the sport of baseball nationally and internationally, and by virtue of the importance of the market that we're in. It's going to become an important marquee franchise, but that was never going to happen until we entered the 21st century in terms of the venue and in terms of maximizing all that we can offer people. So what's going to happen a week from Sunday is terribly important and terribly exciting.
Yeah, and you've been in the dual role of building a stadium and building a team.
Yeah, in a recession. Yeah, right, with no parking. Yeah, so we've had all of those challenges, but that's okay. A challenge is why I came to town.
And developers trying to kill each other.
Yeah, I read about that.
Yes, I wanted to know which is more difficult, keeping the developers at bay or keeping the egos of the politicians happy.
Oh, that is a tough one. But I'm in a business. Blessed with egos everywhere I turn, starting with the president of the club.
Yeah.
But all my employees are artistes. All my players and everyone I deal with is the same way. So it's just part of the game. Again, we came here for a challenge. We got a great one, and it's all been kind of thrilling.
Well, let's go back a little bit, because I think if we talked about your past, it would explain why you can probably handle anything. Because you spent, 25 years or more with Ted Turner?
Yeah, 27, yeah.
27 years with Ted, and you started with him when you were 27.
I started at 24.
At 24?
Yeah.
Well, then all the press is wrong.
Yeah. Well, you see, you're doing your research on Wikipedia. Have people explained to you about Wikipedia? Okay, well, don't get me started on the Post.
Okay. Well, so you were even younger.
Yeah, I used to be quite young.
Tell us about getting hooked up with Ted Turner.
It was right after I finished law school, and I had taken the bar exam of New York and New Jersey at the same time. I was also playing semi-pro baseball on the side. And so I was wiped out. And before I went to work as a lawyer in New York at an antitrust law firm, I did, for a vacation, what I do today. And that's drove around the country going to baseball games. And it was at one of these games. I met the brand new owner of the Braves. It was Ted Turner's first year. After the ball game, I walked up and we started chatting, and we hit it off. He told me to write him a letter, which I did. He invited me to Atlanta, and I went, and I've been there ever since. It's just one of those things.
What was the chemistry?
Oh, I don't know. I think I told him I'd work cheap. That was a big selling item. Yeah, I had this Ivy League law degree, which, how bad could that be?
Right.
So, I will tell you, Ted's the only guy who can do things like that, and it works out, which it kind of did. I don't think that works most of the time.
Yeah, well, and he was just probably just in the midst of winning the America's Cup then.
It was the year before that.
And starting CNN.
Yeah, well, that came a couple years later.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, I mean, there was a lot going on.
We were a month after I started in 1976. We flipped the switch to turn on this new thing called the Superstation. So I was literally there before there was a Superstation. It was an exciting era.
I mean, you were really there at the beginning of the revolution that he played a large role in. But how much of his, it was the baseball team only then, right?
Yes.
And was that like a pleasure for him? So you walking in the door with somebody he wanted to see?
Well, he's not, he was not a big baseball fan or a sports fan at all, but he's a big fan of programming on his TV station, and the Braves had become the most important. He had this little UHF station back then before we put it on the satellite. And the Braves were the most important piece of programming, and when there was real turmoil at the team and the threat of maybe being sold and moved out of town, he couldn't let that happen. So he went and he bought it, didn't really know much about baseball, but started to learn it and tried to hire people around him who could help.
What about you? Were you learning it too?
Well, I was a big fan, and I had played some, and I was prepared to someday be in sports somewhere. Didn't know where, didn't know what opportunity would present itself, but I was ready for whatever
You
opportunity.
grew up in New York City.
I grew up in New Jersey,
New
yeah,
Jersey.
yeah, and New York, yeah.
So what was your bread and butter of sports?
Oh, I was an immense Yankee fan, but I followed all the sports. I followed the Knicks, and I followed some of the Philadelphia teams, but mostly the New York sports teams.
So even when you went off to law school, you knew you wanted to turn that around and turn
Yeah,
it into a sports career in some way?
but I also knew, and it's what I advise kids of today, I knew I need to become the best lawyer I could, because then unless I had done that, I wouldn't be in a position to help anyone, no matter where I wound up. So I took that seriously, but I was doing other things in my spare time. It's funny that I wound up here in Washington because I remember going to seminars on my own that the NFLPA, the Players Association, the union, which is located here in Washington,
Right.
used to hold. And I would do things like this just to learn as much as I could.
Who else? Was there anybody's path you were following, or was this some trail you were blazing? Was there anybody else in your law school class who was doing the same thing?
No, not really. I mean, sports law was not a prevalent thing in the 70s.
And were you even calling it that then?
I called it that. I
Yeah,
didn't know what.
yeah.
I don't know what else to call.
You
When I went to work there, there wasn't any specific set of things I was going to do, but we knew, I'd be doing something, and more, we found things for me to do.
But baseball seemed like a good starting place for you, or that's what he was offering you?
No, that's what he was offering me, but we were a small company that did a lot of other things. We had a billboard company, we had a TV station, we had a baseball team, and my first day on the job, I attended a meeting where we were finalizing details to purchase the basketball team also.
Right, okay.
Hadn't done that yet, but it was
So you
it was
saw-
all coming together.
And when he hired you, was there any way you could have known that you would end up running 3 teams?
No, and I tell this story. Ted came. I've been running the Hawks for a while.
If you give Ted a little, he'll take a lot.
Well, it's actually a little more direct than that, because I was running the Hawks and we were having some success, and I was having some personal recognition, and he came to me and said, "The Braves are a disaster, Stan. I need you to take them over. Not take them over instead of the Hawks, but take them over in addition to the Hawks, which is ridiculous." And Ted said, "Oh, it'd be great. You'll be the only guy running 2 teams. Isn't that right?" And I said, "Yeah, Ted, do you know why that is? It's such a bad idea." But Ted and I always had this understanding, and it's that whenever he and I disagreed on something, we just did things his way. And so that's how I became president of the Braves, yeah. By the way, with my boss and partner and friend Ted Lerner here in town, we had the same policy, basically, and it's working out just fine.
when he takes over the Redskins.
Yeah.
So you then got hockey too.
Yeah, that really was an accident. Maybe my best friend happens to be the commissioner of the NHL. I've known him for 30 years. And for the first 10 years of his tenure, I used to call him up and say, "You poor devil, you got to go to all those damn hockey games. How could you stand it?" And then we built an arena, and I was the only one that knew the arena business, so I had to do that while I was running these 2 teams. And a week into the first season of this new team, the hockey president quits and goes somewhere else, and my phone rings. "Stan, you've got a 3rd team. Congratulations." So I called the commissioner and said, "Yes, I get to go to all these hockey games now. This is fantastic."
Yeah, but you took it seriously. You went and learned to ice skate.
I did do that, yeah. Yeah, sometimes research is a bad thing, Carol. That's
No,
not. I did. I figured I don't know. I just never picked up ice skating as a kid, so I did. I got outfitted, and I went out there, and I had people.
Who taught you?
Bob Hartley, who was a Stanley Cup winning coach, and was our coach, and Danny Heatley, who's going to be an MVP of the league someday. Yes, I had some good teachers,
Yeah.
and I was. And I had my own rink, so it was really easy. And I don't know if any of you know, but they teach you to skate with a chair just like that on the ice, and you skate around holding the chair, and you move around the rink. So yeah, I did some of
What
that.
was the day like when they took the chair away?
Well, we had a couple falls. That apparently that
Do you
happens.
still skate?
No, I've been building this baseball stadium.
Well, it could
So
be.
I don't have a lot of time for that. But my friend Ted Leonsis, I know they've opened up a fantastic new complex in Boston. And next winter, I hope to have some time to maybe. I still have the stuff. I'll get out.